When I started to explain to the public the real meanings, and when in 2010 I started to write my first book about the literary translation of the Bible, I was fired in 1 minute.
Dynamite,
1 minute.
yeah, it's a very
Fired.
explosive subject.
All finished.
Right. So you had a temporary connection with the Vatican.
Yes.
That resulted in...
Yes, after they published this 70 book with my name.
And they're still in print?
They now changed my name. They made a revision of this book, so to insert another name and cancel my name. And when the relationship finished, they started again to translate Elohim with God. But when I was working for them, Elohim was not translated.
Let's dig deeper into this question of El and Elohim and Yahweh, or YHVH.
Yes.
If I understand YHVH, it's supposed to mean I am that I am, or I am what I am. Is that incorrect?
It's not correct, because nobody knows the real meaning of the tetragrammaton.
Yes.
Because when it was pronounced, the Hebrew language did not exist.
Right.
So nobody knows in what language was.
Let me pause
pronounced.
you there. You're saying the Hebrew language did not exist, and and when it was pronounced, are we talking about to Moses, for example? So
yes.
And of course, nobody can absolutely confirm that Moses was a real historical figure at all. But if he was, then they would put the date at maybe 1200 BC.
1200, or in opinion of other scholars, 500.
5th century BC.
BC.
So much later. So there's some argument about when.
But nobody is sure about this.
But when did the Hebrew language come into existence?
That moment, Aramaic was the international language
yeah.
as the English now.
Yeah. So.
But we don't know. We don't know in what language the so-called Yahweh speak. But, for example, we must know that the vowels of Yahweh were put 2,000 years after their first pronunciation. So nobody knows the real sound of this name.
If we accept the early date for Moses, 1200 BC.
Yes.
You're saying that the language that Moses spoke could not have been Hebrew.
No, the language
could have been
Moses...
ancient Egyptian.
Yes, perfect.
Yes. Yeah, could have been ancient Egyptian.
Egyptian.
Is it controversial to say that the Hebrew language did not exist in 1200 BC?
In that time started to exist a form of language which is defined a previous Hebrew.
Old Hebrew.
Old Hebrew.
So there was
but it's not Hebrew because the Hebrew really started to exist as a dialect of as Western Semitic only in the 10th century before Christ.
Right. So this entity called YHVH or Yahweh, we don't know what language he spoke to Moses in.
No, we don't know.
But since Moses was reared in the household of the Pharaoh, it's most likely to be in the ancient Egyptian language.
Yes.
Does that make sense?
Yes.
So later on, much later on, it is imposed into another language, which is Hebrew.
Yes.
And they don't use vowels at that time. Is that right? They have
don't use vowels.
So YHVH are all consonants, and we don't know what the vowels are.
No, we don't know. The vowels started to be written between the 6th and the 9th century after Christ.
After Christ.
After Christ.
Right. So that's when.
Sorry for English.
Okay. No problem. So this is an interpretation in the Hebrew text that is put upon those consonants, YHVH.
Okay.
And generally it's interpreted as God. Now, what about El and Elohim? And how do they relate to Yahweh or YHVH?
El could be, but it's not sure, could be the singular of Elohim, but it's not sure.
Yeah.
El and Elohim could be two terms independent. Mm-hmm. And the singular of Elohim could be Eloah. Mm-hmm. That correspond to Allah in the Semitic Oriental, the Eastern Semitic.
I'm thinking of places in Israel like Bethlehem, Bethel. The El.
Bethel means the house
of God,
El.
house of El, which is often translated as the house of God.
Yes.
But you're saying that there's no legitimacy to that translation.
No, absolutely. But I sure of that, not because I know the real translation of the term El or Elohim, but because nobody knows.
Right.
The translation first. Second, if we read what is really written in the Bible, all people understand that El and Elohim and Eloah doesn't mean God.
Right.
Can't mean God.
Right.
Can't mean.
And would any modern day Hebrew speaker and Hebrew expert agree with you on that?
Yes.
So how do they?
My manager.
So where do they get?
Is studying Hebrew with the University of Jerusalem.
Yeah.
And they hear from her teachers.
Yeah.
Translations that are similar to mine.
Right. So then, but and yet, modern Judaism defines itself as a monotheistic faith which believes in one God. So where is that God in the Hebrew Bible?
There are many Judaism.
Mm-hmm. But there are many Christianities too. But they all share the view that they're monotheistic religions, as indeed is Islam. Or they would define themselves as monotheists.
Yes, but there are many important exegetics Hebrew that writes clearly that El, Elohim, Eloah, Yahweh doesn't refer to the same person.
Mm-hmm. What does that lead us to? What are your conclusions from that?
That Elohim was an superior civilization that divided the various population in kingdoms.
Right.
And
the populations of the whole earth, or of just the Middle East?
Of the whole earth.
Okay.
And Yahweh was in charge of the population named the sons of Israel.
Yeah.
That is Jacob.
Yes.
Not the leader of the all Hebrews.
Okay.
But only of the family of Jacob.
Right.
The other family of Hebrew, like Moabites, Ammonites, Edomites, etc., was assigned to other Elohims that the Bible names clearly: Kamosh, Milcom, Dagon, Asherah. And in many Hebrew...
Dagon and Asherah I recognize as Canaanite or so-called Philistine deities.
Yes, but they are present in the Bible.
They are referenced in the Bible. We hear
Yes.
that the Ark of the Covenant destroys Dagon in the city of Ashdod. They're present in the Bible for sure. But what are they defined as? What are they?
Elohim,
Yeah.
always Elohim.
That-
But the theologians say that those Elohim were not existent, were only idols or idols. Hebrew-
No, I understand Dagon and Asherah being referred to as idols. But the word
Yes.
Elohim is also, according to you, wrongly translated as the one God.
Yes, is a wrong translation.
So Elohim refers to a multiplicity
Yes, to a multiplicity.
of gods.
By sure. Yes. Absolutely. I wanted to reduce the number of the Elohim present in the Bible. I reached the number of 23.
Right.
23.
Yes.
But I reduced
Okay.
the number of the Elohim present in the Bible.
Right.
So there are no doubt.
How did you reduce it?
Reading and translating the Bible, reading also the writings of the peoples that fighting with the people of Israel, but those peoples are of the same family of Abraham. And there they in their scripts named clearly the name of their Elohims. And the name of their Elohims is present in the Bible. For example, in the Bible of the Judges is named Kamosh as the god of Moabites or Moabites. There is a stone of Moabites in which is written that they fought with Israelites and they win. And they win against the people of Yahweh, and they were ruled by their Elohim.
So you're seeing these Elohim as some sort of... You're not jumping to conclusions about what they are, but you're saying they're not gods.
They are of an higher civilization
Yes.
that could survive the great flood.
Okay. We'll come to that. But so let's go with this idea that peoples from another civilization are advising or organizing peoples around the world. So we have Israel, we have the peoples of Israel.
Yes.
We're told that they're brought out of Egypt by Moses.
Yes.
Does Moses receive a divine instruction or any instruction to take the people out of Egypt? And if so, who gives that instruction?
In fact, Moses told to that Elohim, "Who are you?"
Yes.
Because he wanted to be sure with which he was speaking.
Okay. I suppose the most controversial thing that you're saying really is that God, as we are taught to understand God, how I don't know. Personally speaking, I'm not a Christian.
No.
I don't belong to any of the mainstream religions. I don't have strong religious views. I have had experiences that I would describe as spiritual, but I'm not a Christian. But I have an idea of what Christians think God is, and what Christians think God is a man, often with a beard, who is the father of Jesus Christ somehow, and is alone. He's one God, one God. And if I understand you correctly, you're saying there's no basis for that in the Bible.
In the Bible, there is no basis.
And that's the Old Testament of the Bible. Yeah.
Old Testament, absolutely, there is no basis for this construction of the image of the God like a person.
When do you think that image began to be constructed?
In the Bible,
Yeah.
the time of the exile.
At the time of the
in Babylonia.
In Babylonia, right.
In Babylonia.
Right.
Because before they were conscious of the existence of many Elohims.
Yes.
Clearly in the Bible.
Yeah.